Welcome to today's video, which is all about reverse marketing your most placeable candidate. Now, I know some recruiters in some countries call this NPC, some people call this floats. It's all the same thing. But what this strategy is finding A-grade candidates and then reverse marketing them into companies with the hope of getting an interview. This is a really great way to get terms signed as soon as possible with brand new clients and get a quick win on the board. It's also a great way to get in with brand new clients because even if they're not hiring right now, if you've got an amazing candidate and you can actually showcase to your audience, to your target audience, the type of talent you have access to, it's a really good way to get your foot in the door. Now, before we get started, if you're new here, my name's Jessica Kimber. I've been a recruiter for over 17 years. I've owned a recruitment agency for 5 years, and now I specialize in mentoring recruiters and teaching them how they can generate leads, increase their revenue, and automate their time through smarter systems. Now, today's episode is going to give you an exact framework that I use with my clients in order to generate leads really quickly through reverse marketing. Now, the very first thing that you need to be aware of is the 6-step framework to follow. What this consists of is number 1 is introduction. Number 2 is a trigger, a wow statement, and exclusive framing. So you say this part all in one. The third step is 3 to 5 questions, and these questions should be specifically designed to preempt any objections. The 4th step is selling an A-grade candidate. The 5th step is to trial close, and the 6th step is to get commitment of the next stage of the sales cycle, no matter what that might be. And by the way, this is not always an interview. Sometimes you're not always in the right place at the right time, and that's okay. But sometimes a commitment for the next step, for example, a meeting, is a really great win and outcome from this strategy. So let's start at step 1, which is your introduction. It's nice and simple, and all it is hi, name, where you're calling from, and the agency. So hi, Joseph, it's Jessica calling from Raire. Nice and easy, nice and simple. It's just an introduction. Now, step 2 is where you're going to condense a trigger, a wow statement, and exclusive framing. So let's break that down. Now, a trigger is a reason for you to reach out to them. Now, if you have worked with me and done any of my sales training, you will know that there's 21 reasons for you to reach out. Some of them to do with recruitment, some of them to do with their business. So you need to have a really good reason to reach out. Now, in this example of reverse marketing specifically, your reason for reach out is you have an A-grade candidate. So that's nice and easy. Now, the second part of this is your wow statement. So a wow statement is a phrase that I use for dropping in a little subtle one-liner which showcases my credibility and ultimately gives me authority. So a wow statement could be, I've got 17 years recruitment experience. Or a wow statement could be, I've placed thousands of people into employment worldwide. Or it could be, I've got 10 years recruiting in this industry. Because what you're ultimately doing is you're saying, listen to me, without saying, listen to me. You're boosting your credibility for a wow statement. Now, by the way, complete side note, but something I really, really love personal branding on LinkedIn for, and actually getting all of your audience in your network before you do this process, is your content actually works as wow statements because it showcases who you are, who you help, what you do, and what result your audience are going to get. So this is going to be a whole lot easier if you've already got that credibility on the front foot. However, let's pretend you don't for the purpose of this video. What you do is you think of your one-liner wow statement, and then you finish this statement off with what I call exclusive framing. Now, exclusive framing is ultimately saying to your audience, I have access exclusively to something you can't access through your own means. You're alluding to the fact that they're going to want this candidate. Now, this works really, really well for 2 things. The first one is if you've got access to a really hard to find skill set. So let's just say you've got a killer CTO from Google, for example, and you're reverse marketing this person out. You know that CTOs aren't just hanging around on job boards. So this is really exclusive access. The second thing it works really well for is temps, immediate access as well. So it doesn't matter how you may have found out there's an opportunity. Maybe you found a job advert online and you're actually reaching out about an opportunity, or perhaps you've just market mapped and your trigger point is that you've got a candidate that you know your target market really struggles to find. Doesn't really matter. You just got to know your trigger. Why are you reaching out? And by the way, guys, if you want to know how you can actually learn the entire sales cycle, I have the Raire Online Academy. I'll show you what that looks like here, because the Raire Online Academy is specific specifically for recruiters who want to master the sales cycle, reverse marketing, as well as branding. So there's different levels to this. Level 1 is your 0 to 20K in 30 days. This is actually a full reverse marketing challenge. So it's all about, going through the process of picking a niche, market mapping, some brand awareness, finding your candidates, then reverse marketing, then your follow-up strategy. So it's a real quick win. Level 2 is all about 21 stages of business development. So every single stage of the sales cycle you possibly could need is all included here. So, reaching out, creating your pitch, market mapping, generating leads, making the first contact, whether that's phone or digital, overcoming objections, trial closing, pitching, closing, literally everything you could possibly think of is there. And of course, level 3, there is the branding program in there as well. Going back to this training so if you were doing step 1 and step 2 together, it would sound something like this. Hi there, Joseph. My name's Jessica. I'm calling from Raire. I specialise in helping rural hospitals find registered nurses, and I've got over 7 years experience and access to talent pools in your local area. Now, I came across your LinkedIn profile and I did notice that you recently posted an advert. And the reason for my call is I'm reaching out as I'm exclusively partnered with insert hard to fill job title. So in this case, it would be a registered nurse. And listen, I know how hard it is to find this skill set, and this candidate has expressed an interest in working at a hospital or a business or a clinic just like yours. You want to keep this concise. Now that's like the full sentence, but you want to kind of let this reel off in like 10-15 seconds. And the ultimate goal of this is, can you see how it's like, this is the reason I'm calling out, this is the access that I've got, and they've expressed an interest in working at a business just like yours. I really love that line because you're not lying in saying they want to work with you, because of course you don't even know that at this stage. However, if you say a business just like yours and they say, well, why? You're like, well, you're a private clinic and this nurse said she wants to work at a private clinic. So you can still keep it high level, but say that whilst being authentic as well. Then what you want to do is you want to transition into a permission-based opener. Now this is really, really important, because if you don't do this, what will happen is you might hit a roadblock where it's like awkward. It's like, okay, cool, so you want to permission-based opener this. So you want to go into something along the lines of, do you have a couple of minutes to discuss? Or another example is, do you have a couple of minutes and I can explain to you exactly why I'm calling you in particular, or exactly why this candidate would be a great fit for this rural hospital, for example. And again, going back to the sales training program that I teach, if you have completed that, what you would notice is I ask you to get 5 micro commitments throughout any conversation. Get, yes, you're on the right track. Yes, that makes sense. Yes, 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 yes. Because what then happens is when you pitch towards the end, it's really hard for them to be like, no, we don't need that, because you've got all your yeses throughout the conversation really authentically. So get your first yes. If they say no, and some people might say no, respect their time. Don't try and shove information on them. I really don't like that approach at all. But I would try and get commitment for the next step at this point. So I would try and book a meeting, but get some commitment in the diary, whatever that may be. Get the right person's name. Perhaps at this point you've hit an objection where they say, I'm not the decision maker. If they say they're not hiring, we can handle that through hypothetical questioning. I'll get to that in a moment. But ideally you want a yes, and a certain portion of people will say yes to you. So awesome, you've got the green light cue to go ahead and ask your questions. Even though you've asked if you can share more information about the candidate, you have absolutely no clue at this point what this person wants, assuming you haven't spoken to them in the past. So at this point, I would say take it back a step, and I would go into past questioning. So I would say along the lines of, and again, transition into this because you don't just want to blast them with questions. So I would almost justify that I'm going to do that. So I would say, listen, I don't want to assume that this registered nurse would even suit your business. I have absolutely no idea what you even look for. So firstly, is this the type of role that you do hire? Are you in charge of this? Decision maker? Yes. You got your second yes. Perfect. Now, when you do hire, and the when opens up the conversation, what are the top 3 things you look for? Now, what this enables them to do is to give you exactly what they want. You're going to sell into this later, so it's really important, because what you're going to ultimately say is, if I could find you those 3 things, would you move forward? Of course, because that's exactly what they want. So that's question 1. The second question is, how do you usually hire these candidates? Now, this is actually going to preempt any objections, internal teams, we've got a PSA, we use job ads, whatever it might be. So you can handle that objection as it comes. And again, going back to this, the objection handling training that I have is so awesome. It actually teaches you how to overcome 22 different objections. So there's scripts for it, there's rebuttals, there's frameworks, there's absolutely everything you could possibly need to overcome any objection. There's actually a resource in here as well where you can actually get the full script, what they really mean, because by the way, fun fact, objections aren't usually real objections, they're reflex, and then what you need to say. So that's all inside the community group. There is a 7-day free trial as well, so if you do want access to the free trial version, I will leave a link in the description below. Going back to our questions, so you're finding out how they usually hire, handle objections. Then what you need to say is, how often do you usually hire? So you're actually preempting any needs at that point. And you remember, you're still in past questioning at the moment, but you're actually starting to uncover future scenarios. Now, future scenarios is getting them thinking about next steps, because if they say, you know, in 3 months or 6 months, you can go down the path of what's your plan and so forth. So it's a really good question to find out what needs are available, what that looks like. Now, the fourth question that I have the example for is, what happens if you don't find somebody through your own means? Now, you have to remember that objections are quite often actually the truth. If somebody's saying to you, I've got a PSA, or we use job ads, or we've got an internal team, that's not a lie. You've got to remember that every business has operated since you picked up the phone. Every business has got a way to find staff, a way to fill their teams. It's very normal to have objections. What you're actually looking for here is a crack to see, number one, if they even use agencies, and if so, what they use them for. Now, it's hard for me to script your probing questions, because this is where you have to use your initiative and say, okay, so you do use agencies, what roles for? What does that look like? How often? What's the criteria for you to go out to market to an agency? Is there anyone else that needs to be involved in the process? But these 4 questions are really going to give you enough information of what they hire, how they hire, any potential objections, and any potential cracks in the process. So if you're brand new to this, then start there and get your reps in, practicing this technique, and then you can get more advanced with the probing as well. What happens if they say they have no needs, right? Because that will happen a lot. Well, you need to go into something called hypothetical questioning. Hypothetical questioning is when you ask exactly the same question, but you say it in a way that's like, if you had to, when you have to, if you did. And you're basically putting them in a scenario to say, oh, no, I know you don't have a need right now, but if you did, what would you look for? So having a look at the examples here, okay, you have no needs. Well, if you had to hire tomorrow, what kind of person would you want? That's exactly the same as top 3 things that you look for. The next one is, when you do hire, what is your standard recruitment process? How do you usually hire these candidates? It's the same thing. The next one is, roughly, how many times a year do you hire? Is, how often do you hire? And the last one is, let's just say you couldn't find somebody through your own means, hypothetically, Mr. Client. What steps would you follow to go outside of your standard process, which is just what happens if you don't find through your own means? So can you see how you can use a hypothetical question at any point during a conversation if you hit a roadblock? And if you are really struggling, you can give them an A/B answer. So you can say, okay, so just to confirm, would you say it's closer to every 3 months that you hire, or every year? You can still extract information that way if someone's really closed off. When it comes to the questioning phase, keep it to, I'd say, like 5 minutes or so, because remember, you called them about a candidate, and now if you're just quizzing them for 20 minutes, half an hour, they're probably thinking, what, like, just spit it out, you know? We want to know why you've actually called me. Who have you got on your books? And some people might actually get like a little bit crappy about that, because they might actually say, just tell me who you've got. Just send me an email, which is an objection. So you handle it like an objection. At this point, this is where I would actually have about 5 minutes of conversation. If they're super chatty and they're just giving you everything and they're like, yeah, I've got problem, great, roll with it. But you won't always get that. So just almost like know the line of when to cut the conversation off. Then what I would do is step 4. I would go into matching their above answers and selling in my candidate. At this point, what I would also do is another permission-based opener to get my yes, because you don't, again, just want to ram information down. So I would use something along the lines of, Awesome. Listen, I'm really glad you've told me that information. It actually does sound like the candidate that I've got could fit your business. I always use words such as could, should, would, potentially, because you don't want to say definite at this point, because it can actually seem really salesy. So I say, look, it looks as though they can potentially fit. Would you have another 5 minutes and I'll tell you why? Then what you're doing is going into matching exactly what they've said above to how you're selling in the candidate. Of course, assuming that they have bang on skills. Ideally they do. If they don't, that's okay. You can be honest, you can be transparent, and you can even say, look, the candidate I was calling you about actually is not quite the right fit, so I'm not going to waste your time. I do work with candidates like this all the time. Let's talk further about what that may look like. Assuming your candidate's amazing, I would go in to say, remind them, the reason a candidate wants to work at a business just like yours is because, and then insert something they said. So this could be, you're a rural hospital and they want more experience. So there's a match. If you can't do it exactly, just try and be a bit more generic if it's like same industry, for example, but you want to be as really specific. Then what I would go in to say is this candidate has the top 3 skills that are relevant to their business. And remember, you've asked them what the top 3 things that they look for are. So you should be really clear to say, they've got this, this, and this, or they've got this, this, but not quite this. Is this part a non-negotiable for you? Keep it to about 1 minute or so. You don't want to oversell because you want them to ask questions. You get your power and control in the conversation if they start asking you questions. So never give salary here either. Everyone always says, how much do they want? So it keeps the conversation going. So you have a chit chat about the candidate, bam. Then what I would do is I would trial close them. So this is step 5. Remember, through the conversation, you've got, yes, we do hire that. Yes, I do want you to tell me more. You've got all your yeses. This is where you can say, listen, with the limited information I've given you so far, or based on this experience, do you think your company name could benefit from seeing the profile? Or you could say so many more variations of that, like, based on this experience, do you think this is the type of person that would actually fit into your team? What you're ultimately wanting there is a yes. Because remember, if you've got all these yeses, they can't get to this point and say, no, not at all, because they've told you what you want, and all you've done is repeat back what this candidate's got, which aligns to what they want. So you get your yes. This is where you would then actually get the commitment at the next stage, but you might sometimes at this point get a, oh, we've got no need, so no, we don't want to see the candidate. So I would try and go into more hypothetical probing there as well to say, you know, if your best performer was to leave next week and this was an urgent requirement, would it be worth having a profile to hand just to know who's available in the market? Sure, that would actually work. So think of something there as to still try and get commitment to the next stage. Of course, you handle your objections, and once you've got your yes to a trial close, you actually get that commitment, which is step 6. So this is where you say, awesome, in order to send the candidate over, we actually need terms of business signed, etc., etc. I won't go too much into that in this video because remember, this is a quick win reverse marketing framework. But if you do want to learn exactly how to close prospects with complete confidence, pitch and close, and lots of variations to do that to suit your style, definitely check out the online academy. I will leave a link below. In this instance, you get your meeting, you get terms signed, you get some form of commitment, you send the profile, and then hopefully you get an interview. If the candidate's not quite right, that's okay. You can still take the job in as well. It's just a really awesome way to get in front of the right people. That is my reverse marketing strategy from a really high level. Now I can definitely get more advanced with this. This is giving you more so the framework. So if you do want to check it out, head over to the academy. If you did like this video, please do give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe. The more love I get from you guys, the more I can keep creating this content to help you all out. So don't forget to hit the links below. And if you have any questions, leave a comment.